Joel Embiid's return in over a month of not playing basketball, a triple-double in a 76ers victory.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On 76ers. What's going on, everybody? We're your host, Keith Pompey, 76ers beat writer. I'm Kayla, Santiago, sideline reporter for the Delaware Blue Coats, the Philadelphia 76ers NBA G League affiliate. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment wherever you're listening to podcasts. You can also join us with our free daily newsletter that's on lockedondaily.com to get all things Philadelphia 76ers. And today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Joel Embiid comes back. He hasn't played with the Philadelphia 76ers within that month. Comes back last night. 29 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists, triple-double. Keith, how do you think Joel was able to go out there and make kind of a big splash? He had a pretty good game last night against the Mavs.
I mean, I think the biggest thing was just his presence, right? Joel was really aggressive. I mean, it was funny. He made a joke and someone said, "Hey, you caught your rhythm before, earlier than you normally do. It normally takes you a half." And he joked and said, "I was scared I was going to get traded," something like that. Then he's joking. But the thing is, it was right. His presence helped out a lot. I mean, you looked at it. The Sixers offense looked like a well-oiled machine in the first quarter. They shot 65.2% while making 4-7 3-pointers. And the good thing is they had balance. Like they had 7 guys who played in that quarter, and 6 of them scored at least 2 points, right? And a lot of that had to do with his presence, talking about Embiid. And the good thing, Maxey had me chuckling a little bit because he said, a couple times I came off the screen and I was wide open, right? He repeated. He said one time I didn't even shoot it. I was so open. I didn't know. I messed up. He said, but you got to appreciate that, what he brings to the game on the offensive end and then on the defensive end as well. And for the game, the 76ers shot 54.7%, and 8 of the 9 players who played scored at least one basket. So you have to attribute it to, his just being aggressive, doing the things he did. And the one thing I will say this. He ended up with all those points, but late in the game, he was clutch. He scored the final 5 points. He had a huge defensive rebound, and he got his hand on the ball of the final possession of the game. So Joel made his presence known last night.
And he stepped up when it mattered most. And that was the thing that the 76ers had trouble doing, closing out games, closing out that fourth quarter. Joel Embiid, offensive boards in terms of that second and third quarter, struggled a little bit, looked like he was struggling from that point of view. But then at the end there, brings that defensive rebound strong after great defense by Guerschon Yabusele. And the 76ers, they do come out on top in this contest against the Dallas Mavericks. That advances them to 20 wins on the season. I'm going to keep this game centric here, but I want to get your thoughts, Keith, because Guerschon Yabusele, you mentioned and allude to Joel Embiid being able to just kind of elevate the players around him. When he's on the floor, his presence is really felt. I think Guerschon was able to feel that as well. It did take a little bit of time for him to, get into his rhythm too. But Yabusele, to me, is one of the best fours that might be able to play alongside Joel Embiid, maybe ever in the Joel Embiid tenure. And I say that because this trade deadline is looming and there's been a lot of conversations. But what I do have to say is that I think when you have somebody that can play alongside Joel Embiid like that, it is going to advance Guerschon's game. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think they play well together? I know it's only a short snippet of what we saw last night, but it worked out pretty well. And he's also elevating his game too.
Yeah, I mean, they work well together. I mean, I think, it's weird because I'm trying to think of another power forward who played better with him. And I'm getting a little bit of a brain cramp right now. The one thing I'll say is, Yabusele fits well with the Sixers because, you would prefer to have a bigger power forward, right? But the guy is 6'7", he's like 280 pounds, 279, and he looks like a football player, right? But the thing about him is that he fits in well with this team just because he can shoot the ball and he he'll get the easy buckets. So I think that when you have a team where you have a Tyrese Maxey who goes 100 miles an hour, you have a Kelly Oubre who can defend and grab rebounds from the guard position, and you have you know Paul George who didn't play last night, but Justin Edwards who's a pretty good defender. What that does is it enables Yabu to get a lot of easy opportunities. And last night he had 19 points. He shot 7 to 8 from the floor. He also had 4 assists, right, to go with his 8 rebounds. So I don't know if I want to say he's the best one just yet, because I do feel like personally, I feel like if Dario Saric would have stayed a 76er,
Yeah.
like that tandem would have been the all-time best. It just so happens they traded him, early on. But I do like what Yabu is bringing, and last night was another one of his solid performances with 19 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, and he was a +7.
Guerschon Yabusele having a big game there last night too. Joel Embiid, of course. We'll get to Tyrese Maxey a little bit later on because he once again just had another fantastic game. His sixth straight 30-plus point game for the Philadelphia 76ers. When you look at this team, and it's really hard to tell because 2 days, a little bit can change with this trade deadline looming. I know we keep talking about it, but the reality is everybody on this team might not be on this team when we look at them just a few days from now. But against this Mavericks squad, and I know it was, a Mavs squad that didn't have Anthony Davis, that didn't have Derek Lively as well. Of course, a lot happening in their organization as of late. I liked how the 76ers played along with Joel Embiid because throughout this season, you talk, oh, is the chemistry going to be there? Are they able to connect? Now, Paul George wasn't on the floor, and that's a completely different equation you have to fit into the puzzle. But the 76ers team, it was a little messy here and there. Overall, they were able to play in cohesion, though, with Joel Embiid. As you alluded to, he makes everybody better on the floor for this team as well. Once again, he had a triple-double in his return, just his 8th triple-double of his career as well. I think one of the big things, too, that I saw at the end of the game there, Keith, is Embiid always says, I didn't play well. I played horrible. He wasn't great from the free throw line as well, which, you look at his numbers and he usually is missing some there at the end. Overall, 4 for 9 from the charity stripe in general. But for Joel Embiid, I think the biggest thing you look at him right now is he just wants to catch a break. He wants to be able to play. He even posted on Instagram that he hopes he can come back. Of course, not playing in the back-to-back, but it looked like a Joel Embiid last night that wasn't out for a month. We've seen him come back. We've seen him not play great. A triple-double is pretty good considering what we've seen in the past with Joel Embiid coming back after having a month off.
Yeah, he played well. The one thing that he did play well. He looked aggressive. The thing, he looked well rested. I mean, so we
Yeah.
can say that. I mean, think about it. Typically the hard part for Joel and the true test for Joel and actually most guys, and I remember Shaq said this once, he doesn't give guys props for having dominant performances
Mm.
when they don't play a lot of games, right? The true test is going to come. Joel's not going to play in his back to back, but let's see what he does against Detroit on
Yeah.
Friday and what he does against Milwaukee on Sunday, and then the other ones. Those are the things. But what he did is he looked well rested. Now, the one thing I will say that I do think that the 5 turnovers is something that he needs to work on, because some of those turnovers they were able to overcome them, but the 5 turnovers was kind of like, okay, Joel, that was like a crazy pass, like, you didn't have to make that pass. And the one thing for him shooting 4 from 9 from the foul line, a lot of times free throw shooting comes down to fatigue. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? If you start
Mm-hmm.
missing your shots and everything. But aside from that, I'm gonna say this: like what he did is the thing that impressed me about him was, he early on he came out, he made his first 3 baskets, scored 7 points early, and then all of a sudden he had like back to back assists to Kelly Oubre. Then he found Guerschon, and he was doing things like that. So it was obvious that what he did is he wanted to get himself going. He knew that that was going to draw the double teams, some triple teams, right? And then all of a sudden, he was just going to have teammates cutting to the basket, and he was going to find them left and right. So to me, his IQ of the game was really impressed me. Now, again, he did look good, like health wise, whatever. But to me, I looked at it more like he was well rested, and we'll see what happens. But he did get fatigued, and that's what led to the poor free throw shooting.
In addition to that, too, this is something that we've really touched on throughout these episodes is what will the knee swelling look like, too? Because, he can play a chunk of games, and then what will that look like for the next chunk of games as well? So still time to tell just his true dominance coming out there if he can remain healthy. And that's something that he said on the podium as well. Just he wants to go out there. He wants to play healthy. He wants to play, but, these injuries keep happening. So we'll wait and see. Joel Embiid is ruled out against Miami Heat, but that was expected on the back-to-back here tonight as well. He gets a triple-double, his 8th in his career, as the Sixers win 118-116. But when we come back, Tyrese Maxey continues to dominate for the Philadelphia 76ers in some good company as well. His 6th 30-point game, his 6th straight plus of the season. So we will touch on that in just a moment. We have to tell you about Game Time. Looking for tickets for your next big event, whether it's a concert, a comedy show, or a sports game, finding the right ticket at the right price can be a headache. But with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. With Game Time Picks, the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. I've been using Game Time Picks for a while now, and here's why I love it. Well, it gets you the best and the most fantastic deals that you could possibly want. Anytime I want to go to an event or a game, or even I tell my family members as well, hey, use the Game Time Picks to be able to have thousands of options. I recently grabbed a super deal for a prime seat, and I couldn't believe the value. It was a steal. The seat view feature is a game changer. Before I even hit buy, I can see exactly what my seat will look like in the event, when it's so reassuring, because I've been on other places where you look at it and you say, okay, that seat looks good. And you actually get to the arena or the venue and say, this is not where I thought it was at all. Game Time Picks shows you exactly where you will be. And the best part, you're covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund you 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Make sure you go check out Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. And it always seems to be game time for Tyrese Maxey, coming in 33 points, 13 assists, his 6th straight 30-point plus game throughout this season early on. In addition, we allude to good company. He has 15 straight games of 25 plus points. Allen Iverson, Joel Embiid on that list as well. But he's had more than that, Keith. I mean, he's been able to get 33 and the 40s as well. Had a double-double last night. He is truly keeping this team together. Did you think in this performance with Joel Embiid in the lineup that Tyrese Maxey would have a little bit less production value, or were you thinking he was going to continue this dominance? Because it's kind of the best stretch that we've seen possibly of his career, and he was able to feed off the two-man game last night.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like he was going to be able to have a big game. I'm not surprised that he led the team in scoring because when you look at it, Tyrese Maxey, a lot of his great games have come the last 2 years playing alongside Embiid. He's been the beneficiary of the attention that Embiid has, right? And with him being so quick in doing certain things is one of those things where it turns into a track meet, and I don't know anybody in the NBA who could keep up with him, right? So he gets a lot of open looks, and he becomes a beneficiary. Think about it. Even like when we look at it, like who's been a guy who struggled or numbers like Paul George is averaging 17.1 points this season, which is one of the lowest of his career. But when Joel Embiid plays, he's averaging 14 points and only shooting 30% from free. So the guy who really benefited from it was Maxi. But you're right, like, this was his sixth consecutive 30-point game. Like, this guy was balling. And you look at it, he made a couple big shots. He had what, 13 assists, the
Mm-hmm.
second most of his career. So, I kind of think that it's going to continue on. The only question mark I have is, are you guys going to be able to get Paul George's game up to the level that you two are playing on, talking about Maxey and Embiid?
That is the biggest question mark when you look at it. And that's going to, clearly be talked about too after the trade deadline if there's any moves. But, 76ers, the two-man game has worked really throughout both of these guys' career, right? Talking Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. Paul George just still hasn't been able to fit into that just yet. He's played a little bit better just with Tyrese Maxey on the floor, but it's a little bit of a different game when there's the three of them out there. 3 for 11 from the three-point line, but 13 for 22 from the field, 4 for 5 from the charity stripe as well, adding in 4 rebounds to those 13 assists that you alluded to and those 33 points. Tyrese Maxey, not an all-star, but he's starting to play the stretch like he is an all-star. What does this do for the team going into this next stretch of games, especially playing tomorrow night without Joel Embiid, we should say, because Tyrese Maxey now really is playing at that all-star level, and I don't know if it's because he didn't get into the all-star game that he's playing with a chip on his shoulder. I think he's more team focused, though. He said in his press conferences that, listen, I'm just trying to do what I can do for the team to win. But Tyrese Maxey can seriously help this team move up the ranks in the Eastern Conference, and you continue to see it night after night. What does it do for the team overall? Because I think everything that he's doing is fantastic, but the team seems to now finally be on board and being able to play off of his success as well.
I think it does a lot for the team. I think that, in a weird kind of way, the fact that Joel missed all those games, the fact that PG missed some games was good for the Sixers role players, and it was also good for Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey had to become a leader. Not to say that he wasn't a leader before, but he did lead, but I felt like he became more of a leader. Because it got to a point where they depended on him a lot more than they had in the past. And also I felt like he became a better point guard. There were times before where I felt like, Tyrese Maxey was a two guard who just had the ball in his hands, right? He was always looking to pass. Always looking to score. Well, he became a passer. Eric Gordon, he got Eric Gordon involved. He got Justin Edwards involved,
Mhm.
Yabusele, like all these guys start benefiting from him. So you look at that and you say, moving forward, yes, that's a major blessing. It is. But again, in order for them to go far in the playoffs, I honestly believe that they're going to have to find a way to get Paul George open looks. More easier shots. But yes, I would have to say what Maxi did is a benefit and is only going to get better because Embiid is back. Like in the games that he's playing in, look for Maxi to continue to be on the tear. Seriously, look for him because teams he's going to become the second option or,
Yeah.
or the second the second scout. Like on the scouting report, he's the number two option for other teams. With that being said, I think Maxi's going to be able to dominate.
He is going to be able to dominate. He makes players around him better. You alluded to Justin Edwards, somebody that comes in, one of the two-way players for the Sixers organization, 16 points plus 23 on the floor as well, the highest plus minus out of the entire team for the Philadelphia 76ers last night. So Tyrese Maxey, once again, in good company. He's starting to get in good company of his own, though. He's just playing on another level. He's getting other guys involved. He's not forcing as much. Once again, we'll wait and see what it looks like with Paul George. But last night continues to tell you just what Tyrese Maxey can do no matter who's out on the floor. Joel Embiid comes back, gets a triple double, and Tyrese says, I'll still go out there and get 33 and be able to have my sixth straight 30 plus game here on this season. So Tyrese Maxey helps this team, the leading scorer of the night last night, 118 to 116. We're going to keep on this game and kind of look at the Eastern Conference right now. The 20th win for the Philadelphia 76ers, 2 behind the Chicago Bulls. Once again, the Eastern Conference looking at if they were in play-in contention right now. So we'll take a look at that when we come back. And this show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What are some of your relationship green flags? We often hear about the red flags we should avoid, but what if we focus more on identifying the positive signs in our relationship, those green flags? If you're not sure what they look like, therapy can help you identify them, actively practice them, and even embody that green flag energy for yourself. Whether you're dating, married, building a friendship, or just working on yourself, therapy can help you form relationships that you love back. Therapy helps you develop healthy boundaries and improves your communication skills. It empowers you to set clear expectations and express your needs in relationship. Therapy provides tools for managing conflicts in ways that strengthen your connections rather than break them down. BetterHelp makes it easy by offering online therapy with over 30,000 licensed therapists to choose from. And if you need to switch therapists, you can do so at no extra cost. Discover your relationship green flags with BetterHelp. Make sure you visit betterhelp.com/lockedonnba today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba. Make sure you go check it out today. So the 76ers get their 20th win on this season, and they have one of the more easier schedules remaining in the Eastern Conference as well. And this intrigues me for it being, of course, we're not going to have Joel Embiid in that game against the Miami Heat. The 76ers won't, but the Bulls are a game above the 76ers in the standings right now. That comes in with 22 wins. They sit at 10th place. The Hawks right above them with 23. Once again, Eastern Conference very, very close, really, when you're looking down 6-11. But the Bulls, they have a little bit of a tougher schedule coming up. Timberwolves, they play today at 8 p.m. That's on the road in Minnesota. And then they play the Warriors at home. And then they take on the Pistons. For the 76ers, it's the Heat and the Pistons. So a really good chance for the 76ers to kind of move up in the ranks here. Keith, what does this team need to do in these next few games? They're not going to have Joel Embiid. We know the drama surrounding the Miami Heat right now and Jimmy Butler, but I think if you're the 76ers, you got to keep feeding Tyrese Maxey, give him what he's doing, go after, Guerschon Yabusele, who's been having just a fantastic season so far in his role as well, because these are really winnable games, and Chicago could possibly drop those games on the other side and shake up the Eastern Conference standings just a little bit.
Yeah, I expect Chicago's about to go into the major tank. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
even worrying about the Chicago Bulls anymore if I'm the 76ers. And the reason why I'm saying that is it's kind of like, they're still trying to shock people, right?
Right.
They just got rid of Zach Levine. They're trying to get rid of Vucevic, right? So if they do that, I don't expect them to balance. Now, in the 76ers, I think, right now you got to continue to do what you're doing, right? And the thing is, I think that if I'm the 76ers right now, of course I want to win games, but at the same time, at these next couple of games, it's all about building chemistry, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have 30 something games left. To me, it's like, do what you got to do to win. But at the same time, if I'm out there, I'm trying to incorporate Paul George more. I'm trying to see what, um, Quentin Grimes is going to be able to do, try to see what he does. And then, just let them play. Like, let them play. Let the guys get everything together you know. And then not to change the subject a little bit, but right now, why a couple hours after people, I mean, it could be a couple hours after people listen to this podcast, there's probably going to be another move made, right? If
Yep.
not sooner.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have KJ Martin who's about to be out.
Yeah.
There was a trade pending for him. There is a trade pending for him, and so what that's going to do is, what it's kind of do is financially, it's going to enable the 76ers to get below the luxury tax by getting rid of Caleb Martin and then KJ Martin. And so it's just one of those things now where we look at it for the next couple games or whatever is all about getting more people healthy and the new guys letting them mesh well with the older ones. And you gotta get Paul George more involved. But yeah, I expect them now. The Detroit going to Detroit is completely
Tough.
different than what it was beforehand, right?
Oh, yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
then that Milwaukee game, I think that's going to be a big one. But again, can they go out there and win? Yes. I do think that Joel Embiid is going to have to play for them to win that game, though, in Milwaukee.
For sure. That's on Super Bowl Sunday, the big game
Yeah.
Sunday, February 9th at 2 p.m. as well. So that's in Milwaukee. And then they play the Pistons. That's not a back to back, too. The Friday is the Pistons game, and then they have a day in between Saturday, and then they go to Milwaukee for Sunday. So you look at Joel Embiid for the 76ers, hopefully only out against the Miami Heat. And then, look at that knee swelling. Hopefully it's all good after this game, and he plays on the road against the Pistons and the Bucks. And you bring up a good point about KJ Martin. I think for the Philadelphia 76ers, and I'm going to give out my thoughts before we wrap, because it could happen in the middle of the night here. We might be, just wrapping this up, and then all of a sudden, it drops that KJ Martin gets shots off somewhere. But I think if I'm the 76ers and if I'm Daryl Morey in that front office, that might be maybe the last trade that I make. And I know a lot of people probably want more players to come in. I know, Keith, you've talked about more of kind of a backup point guard that you want to see the Philadelphia 76ers get. But after what I saw last night, it goes back to the game against the Mavs. I don't think that the 76ers should trade Guerschon Yabusele. And I know that his consistency has been there, and I know they don't necessarily lose him in the offseason, and I get all those things. But you're right. Since Dario Saric, this might be the best power forward that can play with Joel Embiid. Now, it's a short sample size, it's a small sample size. But after last night, I think Guerschon, I don't want to say he's untouchable because I don't really use those words with other guys besides Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid. Anything can happen. But when you're trying to have a healthy team going into the playoffs and somebody that can play alongside Joel Embiid and even back him up as that stretch five, I think maybe KJ Martin should be the last guy that you let go of and try to bring somebody else in, or for picks or for capital, whatever that may be. What are your thoughts on that before we send things off here for the day?
The thing is, I mean, I guess it's all about if you could get somebody that's going to be able to upgrade the roster, then you go out and get them, right? I mean, we look at it right now. I do think that, the way that Guerschon has played and the way that Justin Edwards have played, both of these moves are going to set the 76ers up to be able to get Justin Edwards paid, right? For
Yeah.
him to get a contract. They could probably convert the two-way, kind of like what they did with Ricky Council last year, convert the two-way to a regular NBA deal. Guerschon, right now, Nick Nurse says something. He says, well, what we want to do is we want to start our five best players, because he was asked about Guerschon being in the starting lineup. We want to start our five best players, and Guerschon is definitely one of them.
Mm.
So that's telling you right there that they don't want to trade him. I mean, they don't, and I think they won't. Again, you know what? Like, KJ could be the last guy, but they may still decide that they may need another point guard. And if they do that, it won't be, it could be Reggie Jackson. Now, who knows? But I'm just saying, if they decide that they want to get another point guard, then one of those guys could be expendable. But at the same time, we don't know. Who knows? They may have extra roster spots available. And with that being said, they may not have to waive someone, right? Or they could get someone in the buyout market. So here's one thing I will say. Reggie Jackson and Kyle Lowry are the only two people on the roster who won a championship. And I
Yeah.
think that type of leadership you get from that is good for a team. You know what I mean? You may not get a lot of minutes, but that leadership is good for a team, or that experience that you had.
And I know some people probably watching this. I know a lot of people aren't fans right now of Kyle Lowry and Reggie Jackson, but the other alternative is that what are you really going to get back for those guys too, right? Are you going to get anybody that's even better than what they're able to bring from a product standpoint out there when they go in and get those minutes and that leadership in the locker room? Because there was even a clip last night in the game where Kyle Lowry was in the year of Tyrese Maxey and coaching up too off the bench. So those are things that you don't get every single day. Kyle Lowry has won an NBA championship with Nick Nurse. People, I'm not saying he's untradeable and that you can't get rid of him and things like that, but it does matter. Now, I would favor on the side of if you had to pick between those two and you can get somebody in return, maybe let go of Reggie Jackson and keep Lowry. But once again, I just don't think you get much back from them either way if you're going to go out there and try to make a swap in terms of before the trade deadline. It's Go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah, go
like
ahead.
here's the thing. Like the one thing is, and it shouldn't even have to be explained. I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, you can hate on whoever you want to hate on, but the fact remains is that when you look at NBA teams nowadays, they all have like a old vet who's
They do.
wise and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that I will say about Kyle Lowry, I like Kyle, but I like him a lot. The thing about him is the thing that I like about him is whenever it's after a game, and no matter where he played at or who he played with before, there's always I'm talking about quickly after the game. There's always a guy who was a former teammate in the hallway talking to Kyle, getting advice
Mm-hmm.
from him. And Kyle was like giving them wisdom. The same thing with the teammates on the team in the locker room. You see Kyle's locker is like right before they go to like the training room or whatever, but then you see people over there chatting with him. You can't replace that. And then also what his nickname when he was hurt one time, it was Coach Lowry, Coach Kyle.
Yeah,
So
right.
you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like you can't replace that stuff. Now that doesn't mean that he has to get a lot of minutes or in the playoffs that he has to get minutes. At the same time, it's just that he's a guy, like you said, who's always in Maxey's ear. He's in other people's ear. And you can't like duplicate that. It's different.
It is different. I will agree with you on that one too. And I think that once again, if you're going to try to trade him, nobody is going to give you anything probably better than Kyle Lowry back. Maybe somebody that might play more minutes, but then you lose that leadership factor as well, in addition to that. So it is going to be a crazy, a little bit 24 hours here as the trade deadline lows, because we do know, and our thoughts are that KJ Martin will probably not be a 76er
No,
before
there ain't
the
no
trade
thoughts.
deadline
He's
comes to an
gone.
end.
There's no thoughts.
They
He's
said he's
gone.
out because the 76ers are pending a trade. So he's
Unless
gone.
the people back out, but I think he's
Yeah.
gone. I
So,
think
and
he's gone.
we'll see what they get from him. And in addition, if there's anything else that the 76ers do, we'll be on top of that as well. The latest has been that Kayla Martin is out. Grimes coming into the 76ers in addition to getting that 2025 second round pick as well. But 76ers do come out on top in Embiid's return in over a month, 118 to 116. Joel Embiid is 8th career triple-double, in addition to Tyrese Maxey, his 6th straight 30-point plus game for the 76ers. He finished with 33 and 13 assists. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On 76ers. They take on the Heat tonight. We'll have you guys after the game and keep you updated with any trades that happen within the Philadelphia 76ers. So we'll see you guys next time.